Hello, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Literary Love 123, where I combine my master's in English with my passion for the horror genre to talk about the books that I read. Today's video is a good old book haul video. So, this is going to be a long one. I've hauled quite a few books over the past couple of months. So, settle in, grab a drink, and after this quick intro, I'll talk about the books that I've recently hauled. I have classics, I have new releases, I have horror, I have nonfiction, I have physical books, I have ebooks. So let's get into this. So, first of all, I want to start with a classic that I recently hauled, and that is Kate Chopin and The Awakening. So, let me tell you about this book. When first published in 1899, The Awakening shocked readers with its honest treatment of female marital infidelity. Audiences accustomed to the pieties of late Victorian romantic fiction were taken aback by this daring portrayal of a woman trapped in a stifling marriage who seeks and finds passionate physical love outside the straitened confines of her domestic situation. Aside from its unusually frank treatment of a then controversial subject, the novel is widely admired today for its literary qualities. Although the theme of marital infidelity no longer shocks, few novels have plumbed the psychology of a woman involved in an illicit relationship with the perception, artistry, and honesty that Kate Chopin brought to The Awakening. So, looking forward to that. I've read a portion of it, but I've never read the entire book. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So the next book that I have, I guess you could kind of consider it to be classic adjacent. And this is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rice or Reese. Um, Jean Rice, a native of Dominica, wrote Wide Sargasso Sea as a revision of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, focusing her novel on Bertha, the Jamaican madwoman locked in the attic of the British Manor House. Written over the course of 21 years and published in 1966, Wide Sargasso Sea was immediately recognized as a central novel for those interested in colonialism, Caribbean culture, race, and women's writing. It is set in Jamaica, Dominica, and England between 1839 and 1845 and describes a world of changing power relations among the English, the Creoles, and the newly emancipated enslaved peoples. The novel is considered a literary masterpiece for its simple yet rich language and its innovative narrative structure. The text of, okay, this is just talking now about the Norton Critical Edition, because I should mention that this is a Norton Critical Edition. The book itself is actually fairly short. So let me see. There are so many essays in it and scholarly analyses of it. So I'm really excited to read into that criticism. So I'm trying to see, like, goodness, exactly where the book ends. It looks like it's maybe 100 something pages, but if you follow my channel, you may recall that I mentioned one of the papers I wrote in grad school focused on Bertha from Jane Eyre and Lucy from Dracula as marginalized and oppressed women. And so I talked about the ways in which they were not quite what was expected of the angel of the house kind of mentality in the Victorian era. And I talked about even within their marginalization in the novels that Bertha experienced a greater degree of marginalization. So I am very, very excited to dive into Wide Sargasso Sea. I'm not sure why I haven't done it yet, but now's going to be the time. All right. So the next couple of books I want to talk about are both nonfiction. So I've already been reading this one, and I may or may not have talked about it on my channel. I can't remember, but don't think I've hauled it. And that is Darkly: Black History and America's Gothic Soul by Leila Taylor. So I want to read a little bit about this book to you, and I am enjoying it so far. As you can see, I've got a few tabs in here. Haunted houses, bitter revenants, and muffled heartbeats under floorboards. The American Gothic is a macabre tale based on a true story. Part memoir and part cultural critique, Darkly reveals the heart of America's darkness in the specters left from chattel slavery and the persistence of white supremacy. Locating the Gothic in technologies of terror, the insurgency of melancholy, and the guilty conscience of a country that got away with murder, Darkly shows how this trauma has been metabolized into art, music, film, and literature. So, like I said, I'm enjoying this book, and when I finish it, I will be talking in depth about it in a later video. The other nonfiction book that I have is Suburban Nation by Robert Buca. Reading Suburban Landscapes in 20th Century American Fiction and Film. So let me tell you about this book. Green lawns, swimming pools, backyard barbecues. Welcome to suburbia, the promised land of the American middle class. Or is it? To judge by the depiction of suburbia in prominent works of American fiction and film, the suburbs are also home to dysfunctional families, broken communities, and widespread misery. Clearly, despite the continued popularity of the suburbs as a place to live, the prevailing image of suburbia has changed markedly since the days of Leave It to Beaver and Father Knows Best. In this illuminating book, Robert Buca argues that in order to begin to understand our conflicted relationship toward the suburbs, we need to understand how suburbia has come to be defined through its representation in the popular media and arts. Suburbia Nation looks carefully at the suburban landscape through the lens of fiction and of film, and Buca weaves together such classics as It's a Wonderful Life, The Stepford Wives, The Great Gatsby, The Swimmer, The Graduate, and House Party to discuss the suburb and its significance in American culture. So, the suburban Gothic is something that I've been interested in for quite a while now. And look in the future for a series on my channel about the suburban Gothic. Okay, so now we're kind of switching into, speaking of Gothic, into Gothic and horror novels that I recently hauled. So if you have been following me, you may recall I talked about this book, My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna Van Veen. This made my top 10 of 2024. I first read it in ebook format, but but because I absolutely fell in love with it, I wanted to have my own physical copy to put on the shelves. And also, just look at this cover. Is this not just an absolutely stunning cover? So, let me talk about My Darling Dreadful Thing. Ruth Beckman has a spirit companion only she can see. Ruth, strange, corpse like, and dead for centuries, is the light of Ruth's life. That is, until the wealthy young widow Agnes Knoop visits one of Ruth's backroom seances and the two strike up a connection. Soon, Ruth is whisked away to the crumbling estate Agnes inherited upon the death of her husband, where an ill woman haunts the halls. Strange smells drift through the air at night, and mysterious stone statues reside in the family chapel. Something dreadful festers in the manor, but still, the attraction between Ruth and Agnes is undeniable. Then someone is murdered. Poor, alone, and with a history of hysterics, Ruth is the obvious culprit. With her sanity and innocence in question, she'll have to prove who or what is at fault or lose everything she holds dear. If you haven't read this yet, I highly, highly recommend that you get on it. I have also pre ordered this author's blood on her tongue, but I'm not going to talk about it in this particular haul video since it's a pre-order. All right. Another book that I've hauled recently is Into Thin Air by Michelle Paver. I recently read Wakenhurst by this author and enjoyed it. And I recently read Dark Matter by this author and I greatly enjoyed it. I did an entire vlog devoted to Dark Matter. And so I will link that down in the description box below if that's something that you're interested in watching. So let me tell you what Thin Air is about. Let's see. The Himalayas, 1935. I should have looked up how to pronounce this. Kanchenjunga, the sacred mountain, biggest killer of them all. 5 Englishmen set out to conquer it, but courage can only take them so far. And the higher they climb, the darker it gets. So that's all it says on the back. So I'm going to leave it at that because I kind of want to go into this one just knowing that little bit of information. The next book that I hauled is Night Film. Ooh, that glare, by Marisha Pessl. So let me talk about this. Ashley Cordova, the mysterious gifted daughter of the reclusive film director Stanislas Cordova, is found dead in an abandoned warehouse in Lower Manhattan. Her death is ruled a suicide, but veteran investigative journalist Scott McGrath suspects otherwise. What happened to Ashley? As McGrath tries to uncover the truth, he is drawn into a spellbinding quest in the underworld of the Cordova family's life. With breakneck pace and dazzling inventiveness, Night Film will hold you in suspense until you turn the final page. I've heard so much about this. So I decided that this would be a good time for me to get this and see what all the hype is about. So the next book I have is a new release. I listened to a few interviews on podcasts with this author. One podcast was the Talking Scared podcast, and the other podcast was the Final Girls podcast or Final Girls. I can't remember the exact terminology, but I will link both of those episodes down in the description box below so you can also check those out. But the book is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. So let me tell you about this book. And also, again, with this cover, I mean, this is just giving me everything I want as someone who is really in her Dorothy Daniels era. If you know Dorothy Daniels from A Certain Hunger, that's a book I talk about quite often. No, don't tell on me. I'm not literally, reenacting things that cannibalistic food critic Dorothy Daniels does, but I'm just in that era. I'm obsessed with the television show Yellow Jackets. So, yeah, and anything that's connected to this kind of, stuff. So, let me tell you about this. A folk tale, a horror story, a love story, an enchantment. Margot and Mama have lived by the forest ever since Margot can remember. When Margot is not at school, they spend quiet days together in their cottage, waiting for strangers to knock on their door. Strays, Mama calls them. People who have strayed too far from the road. Mama loves the strays. She feeds them wine, keeps them warm. Then she satisfies her burning appetite by picking apart their bodies. But Mama's want is stronger than her hunger sometimes. And when a beautiful white toothed stray named Eden turns up in the heart of a snowstorm, Margot must confront the shifting dynamics of her family, untangle her own desires, and make her bid for freedom. With this gothic coming of age tale, debut novelist Lucy Rose explores how women swallow their anger, desire, and animal instincts and wrings the relationship between mother and daughter until blood drips from it. Now, Lucy Rose has also done film shorts, And I watched one called She Lives Alone recently, and I really liked it. It's only like 15 minutes. And it was compared to, I think it was Neil MacRobert on the Talking Scared podcast, compared that film short, She Lives Alone, to the Bronte sisters meets The Witch. So I'm going to link that down below, and that way you can see what you think of it. So another book that I recently hauled is Carmilla, the First Vampire by Amy Chu and Sue Lee. So I love Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla, and I'm always looking for anything that's Carmilla adjacent, Carmilla reimaginings. I pre-ordered Hungerstone by Kat Dunn, which is also a Carmilla reimagining. But again, since it's a pre-order, I'm not going to talk about it today. But let me talk about this book. Set in 1996, the year of the rat, the idealistic Chinese American social worker turns detective when she discovers young homeless LGBTQ plus women are being murdered, and no one, especially the police, seems to care. A series of clues points her to Carmilla's, a mysterious nightclub in the heart of Manhattan's Chinatown. There she falls for the next likely target, landing her at the center of a real-life horror story and face to face with questions about herself, her life, and fateful family secrets. So let me just show you just a couple, of pages. I love these illustrations. All right. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. Now, I did try to read The Drift by this author in January, and I ended up DNFing The Drift. But several people have said that The Burning Girls might be one of her books that would work better for me. So let me tell you what this is about. A dark history lingers in Chapel Croft. 500 years ago, Protestant martyrs were betrayed, then burned. 30 years ago, two teenage girls disappeared without a trace. And a few weeks ago, the vicar of the local parish hanged himself in the nave of the church. Reverend Jack Brooks, a single parent with a 14-year-old daughter and a heavy conscience, arrives in the village hoping for a fresh start. Instead, Jack finds a town rife with conspiracies and secrets and is greeted with a strange welcome package, an exorcism kit, and a note that warns. But there is nothing covered up that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. The more Jack and daughter Flo explore the town and get to know its strange denizens, the deeper they are drawn into age old rifts, mysteries, and suspicions. And when Flo begins to see specters of girls ablaze, it becomes apparent that there are ghosts here that refuse to be laid to rest. Uncovering the truth can be deadly in a village with a bloody past, where everyone has something to hide and no one trusts an outsider. All right. So shifting gears a little bit here, but sticking with what I have physical editions of. Let me talk to you about a book that's not, exactly like a book to be read per se, but it is Bloodthirsty and Bewitched, an activity book for strange and unusual adults. I got this from Boardwalk, and it is written by Meredith Aaron and Matt Snow. So this book contains crosswords, mazes, word searches, matching games, cryptograms, word jumbles, logic puzzles, creative writing games, math puzzles, and I especially thought about Kat from Kat's Novel Adventures because there are Mad Libs in this book too. So this just gives me something to do when I am watching TV, something I can keep my hands busy with, keep me from doom scrolling, right? Now also I just want to briefly talk about one part of it where it has this haunted sorry, this horror bingo board where you can, fill it up when you're watching horror movies. I won't read every bingo board square to you, obviously, but let me just read a couple. Something evil is seen or escapes from a mirror. Someone goes to investigate an ominous sound. Characters run upstairs to escape instead of out the front or back door. Someone gets possessed by a nefarious entity. So I thought that'd be just really fun to do when you're sitting around, watching your horror movies. All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is not really a book, but it's something that I got to help me work on some of the things that I need to be working on for my therapy. So I was talking to my therapist about struggling with finding a focus in everyday life and also about struggling to practice self care. So I got this called Love Notes to Myself, a box of 60 inspiring cards, and it's designed by Dana Lee Collection. And so it has four different categories. You have self care, you have gratitude, you have focus, and you have goals. So, depending on what your plan for the day is, which of the areas you're choosing to work on, you can pick a card from any of these four categories and you can get some very simple set ways to achieve self-care or gratitude for that day. And it also has questions on the back of each card so you can kind of assess, how you chose to do what you did and if that was beneficial to you and how it was beneficial to you. So it's just very helpful if you're struggling to kind of put the, pieces in place for your mental health these days. All right. So now I'm going to talk about ebooks that I have recently hauled. The first ebook I want to talk about is Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner. This book was originally published in 1926, and I had never heard of this book until I was watching an author talk that Grady Hendrix did for his newest release, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, which I actually DNF'd after the first two chapters. But we'll talk about that in another video. But I was very interested in this book, Lolly Willows, that he mentioned. So let me tell you about Lolly Willows by Sylvia Townsend Warner. A groundbreaking and enchanting novel, Lolly Willows tells the story of Laura Lolly Willows, a single woman who breaks free from societal expectations to embrace an unconventional and liberating path. This witty and imaginative tale is a feminist classic exploring themes of autonomy, rebellion, and self discovery. The plot: freedom from convention. Lolly Willows, tired of living under her family's control, moves to a small village where she finds solace and independence. An unusual pact. Her newfound peace leads to a surprising and magical alliance with the forces of nature and the devil himself. A journey of transformation. Lolly's story unfolds with humor and poignancy as she reclaims her life and her identity on her own terms. Why read Lolly Willows? Feminist undertones. The novel is celebrated as one of the first modern feminist works, highlighting a woman's quest for freedom and individuality. Magical realism. Warner weaves fantastical elements with a sharp social commentary, creating a unique narrative experience. Timeless themes. The novel addresses universal struggles of conformity, autonomy, and the search for meaning. I was absolutely sold. So I had to get an edition of Lolly Willows. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is The Phantom of the Opera. First published in 1910, a gothic horror romance classic. And I got a Moncrief Classic Edition that is annotated. And let me tell you what this book is about. The Phantom of the Opera is a celebrated Gothic romance novel by French author Gaston Leroy, first published in 1910. In this, his masterpiece, Leroy delivers a mesmerizing thriller exploring themes of romantic love, obsession, and violence. This edition, okay, so I have the edition that features the English translation by Alexander Teixeira de Matos. Following her spectacular debut, the rumors of a ghost haunting the labyrinthine depths of the Paris Opera seem to become a reality when young singer Christine Day vanishes. Leroux's Phantom remains a powerful, absorbing literary classic and an unmissable read. Okay, so I've missed it so far. I haven't read it. So I guess since it's unmissable, I should go ahead and pick it up. And I am reading this for a book club. I'm going to link Marissa's website, Le Salon Literary Discussions, down below. If you're interested in joining her book club discussion for The Phantom of the Opera or any of the other really excellent selections that she has coming up on her book club discussion group. All right, so now let's talk about another ebook I got, and that is the collected poems or the complete poems of Emily Bronte. I have read several of her poems online, but I don't have a place where they're all gathered. And one day I would like to get a physical copy, but they had the ebook on sale, so I grabbed that up. So let me talk a little bit about Emily Bronte. So, of course, she is one of the well known Bronte sisters, most well known for writing Wuthering Heights, which is one of my favorite classics. She published poems along with her sisters, Charlotte and Anne. And their work was published under the pen names of Acton, Ellis, and Currer Bell, because at the time they were writing in the 1800s, women were not always able to have their works published or taken seriously. So there you go. So let me talk to you a little bit about what this synopsis says about Emily Bronte's poetry. Because she wrote entirely for her own satisfaction without desire for fame or posterity, Emily Bronte's poetry displays a private, instinctive style. The genuine nature of her words, which were inspired by the traditions of her romantic predecessors, expresses a true artistic vision of energy, life, and the soul from an intensely introspective point of view. And if you haven't read any of Emily Bronte's poetry, I highly recommend that you do. Spellbound is a really great place to start with her poetry. So I'm looking to see if I have anything else that I have gotten lately. Okay, yes. The book I'm currently reading right now in ebook format, and that is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fato. So let me tell you what this book is about. The plot follows Winifred Naughty, who is hired as a governess at Ensor House. She's carrying around a darkness which she is trying to control, but which might end up controlling her. I think that's all you really need to know going into it, that you have Winifred Naughty. She's a governess. She is carrying around this darkness inside of her. And she may go a little bit psychotic, hence Victorian Psycho. So, because I'm only like partway into the book, I don't want to say a whole lot about it here, but I feel certain that I will be rating it pretty highly. And there's also going to be a movie adaptation, which I'm looking forward to. So, if you have hung with me this long, thank you so much. I would love to know what books you're looking forward to reading. What books have you hauled lately? Have you read any of the books that I talked about? What did you think of them? I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell, so that we can continue to talk about books that we buy and books that we want to buy. And remember, until next time, hex the patriarchy and read your books. Bye.